Yeah, say so.
Sure. Cool, all right, guys. Well, yeah, last few weeks, me and Alex have been rebuilding the Badger site, and we've been using some pretty cool tech. It's a greenfield project, so we can choose whatever we want, and we've chosen a pretty cutting edge like libraries that have just come out in the last like month or two. So we're using GraphQL, we're using Relay, CSS modules, and Post-CSS. And I guess the whole thing starts with GraphQL. So where did GraphQL come from? Well, so Facebook will obviously started off as a web application, right? They always were. So when they went and started fancy mobiles, they tried to deliver Facebook with like a web app, and then that kind of failed because like mobile web wasn't up to scratch and you couldn't deliver like a nice native performance. So then it's like a non-native route, and then you did like Android apps and you did iPhone apps. And speaking of he said, you remember the patient we went up to one of the Objective-C guys, and he said, like, you know, we're totally fucked, right? Because we've got all these different like versions of the mobile app, like different languages. You know, not everyone updates the latest version, so it's different versions, and they're all talking to Facebook APIs, right? These like RESTful APIs, and you've got this problem where you kind of like want to improve the APIs to make the next version of the app good, but you've got to keep the old ones chugging along, and so they were going to be like, we're going to have like 50 different versions of this API, and you know, it's totally fucked. And then that's where GraphQL was born. So it opposes REST. REST basically, the guy that invented REST said it was kind of intended for like long-lived like network, like servers like talking to each other, but they got good at internet connectivity, and make model requests didn't really affect the user experience. But GraphQL, the reason it's called a graph is because you've got these like nested like data structures, like in Facebook, right? You've got like a Facebook post, like it's comments, and that comment has an author, and that author has friends, that all has a profile photo. So you've got to access all these different data attributes that are all over the place. And that's where GraphQL comes in. And the reason it's really cool if you've got like 50 different clients and different versions is because it becomes really easy to like appreciate old APIs. You can just, if one attribute, take it off the API, you can just throw a warning to anyone who's like developing a Facebook in your app. And then if in production, an old client requests that attribute, you give it back to it so it can chug along. So yeah, that's kind of like where GraphQL came from. It came from helping the Facebook boys out and build it. So the next thing that comes on GraphQL is making it work with Facebook React, and that's where Relay comes in. So Relay is a front-end JavaScript library. It's at the bottom there. So Relay is a front-end JavaScript library that runs as a client, works with React, and it consumes your GraphQL server. As for building a GraphQL server, you've got the GraphQL JavaScript library, and there's like a formal specification on this. How a GraphQL server should react, what code you give it, what it gives back, and that's all formalized. So there's other implementations besides JavaScript. There's a Ruby one. There's some guys making around with some Postgres stuff as well. And then another library you've got is GraphQL Relay.js. So this is because a relay makes some assumptions about a GraphQL schema that are in addition to the general spec. It's pretty small. There's only 3 core assumptions that it makes. But GraphQL Relay just helps you play with that. And then you've got another library called Express GraphQL, which just helps you set up a GraphQL endpoint that your client can talk to. It's Express middleware and accepts like HTTP post and GET requests, the GraphQL query, and gives you back a application JSON response. So now I'm just going to show you a really basic GraphQL Relay library from top to bottom. So this is an official library that the Facebook boys have released. I'm going to go top to bottom. So you've got a single Babel Relay plugin. This basically helps you in development. Like if you ask for something that doesn't exist, if you ask to make a query that's basically wrong, it'll blow up in your development environment to help you develop, called DX. So in this example, it's really simple. It's just a viewer has a bunch of widgets,
and a widget has a name. Okay, so it's really simple. So you have this vanilla database written in JavaScript. It's not very important. It just has 3 widgets, right? With a bunch of method exports. Now, the juicy file is the schema one. You have the libraries that I was talking about earlier, basically importing functions from there that let you build a GraphQL schema. So this is the core GraphQL one. We grab a bunch of like scalars, stuff like IDs, ints, booleans, stuff we're used to in normal languages, and then other functions that allow you to build other types within a GraphQL schema, such as the object type. The next thing is the GraphQL relay. This gets a little bit more complicated. This is to do with the additional specs that you need to support a relay application. The 3 things are like object identification, so every node in your graph database has a unique ID, and it allows fetching of that. It also gives you support of like cursoring through, like if you had like 100 posts, it let you like get the first 5 posts after this post, and then the first 5 posts after that one. So it lets you like paginate when you're in a UI. Then what was the other one? Yeah, the other one was mutations. So it makes some assumptions about how you mutate your database. We'll come to that later. But it basically just gives you a helper method to build that. And the next thing is just importing the database functions that were described in the vanilla database file. And then here we basically build the schema. This is the unique. This is for doing the refetching of like the unique global ID. It takes the ID, which can be anything. It could be like a Postgres ID, and then it turns it into a global ID simply by base64ing it with the type of the object pre-appended to the ID, which is pretty simple, but it's a real clever way of just having this like globally unique ID in your system. Here we're describing the user object, and each of the user object has fields. You could think of these as attributes, just saying that a user has an ID and it has a bunch of widgets. And then here's the widget itself. Again, it has an ID and just a name, which is the name of the widget. Cool. And then in a GraphQL schema, you have like 2 entry points into the schema. One is the query type, which is simply for getting information, and the other is the mutation type, which is for updating data in the schema. And this shorthand version is like the user-readable version. And there's a nice function that like can take that JavaScript and just print out a user-readable version. So that's useful for like documentation, like while you're developing and stuff. It also spits out JSON of the schema, which is what the Babel thing uses. Now coming onto the actual app, you've got what we're all familiar with here is just a React component. And one of the big advantages of React Relay, they call it like co-location. So you specify like the data requirements from the server in the same file as where you specify the React component. So here it's saying render a widget list, and under here we're saying what attributes from each widget we want. In this case, we want name, and it makes it very easy while developing because you can see exactly what you have, and then you can call it from the props to extract it out and print it into the view. You also get the relay route. The relay route is like the entry point into the application, so it's your top level query. So when I talked about that, the query type and mutation type being the entry point into the schema, that's what this query is here. And then this is being passed the app component, and then it's calling get fragment on the app component, which is returning this. And then app.js is just instantiating the whole relay application within the browser. And yeah, and this is just simple HTML that's loading the app into. And scripts is for updating that JSON file and the .GraphQL file that I was talking about. So yeah, that's basic Relay app, and as you see, it's like there's quite a lot of code going on. I think when we got into React, it was quite easy to see the benefits of React because you kind of saw these little snippets on their site, like that here's a counter going up, look how cool this is. And it's like, oh, that's so easy. And I can draw you into React, but like it's definitely easy to be scared away by Relay and GraphQL because there's a lot to learn. And we reckon it took us about 5 days.
Start appreciating.
Yeah, I kind of hated it at first. But yeah, that's like.
Well, there are reasons because I mean, yeah, because the technical preview, some things are not clear from documentation. Documentation is also like written. It's kind of written well actually, but they're still gathering. Right now, they have an issue on Relay. Like, how would you like to improve the whole documentation? There are lots of improvements proposals because people are really unclear. First, why would they need Relay, and also how to get into the like depth of it, and yeah, there's lots of things.
Yeah.
But it's the case with GraphQL, documentation is lacking, and sometimes just need to read the code.
Exactly, yeah.
No idea.
It's very young though, right? It's like 0.1, and
yes, and it's a technical preview. It's not a kind of release.
Yeah.
based on so React's on 0.14 or will be soon, and React Native on 0.10. So it's got in a year's time, it'll be in the same position as they are.
In all the fairness, the errors that React was giving from the beginning were much more descriptive than Relay, because Relay's errors sometimes just, I give up.
And GraphQL swallows down, which is even better.
Yeah. So
but yeah, we'll talk about the hard bits and let's talk about the hard bits first. So mutations are there, like there's a lot to them. So if you look at, they give you a to-do ABC example. So this is all in the official GitHub repo. There's an example as well. I'm just going to show you some of the mutation code. So let's have a look at the add to-do mutation. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of lines there. There's like 60 lines of code. But yeah, it's easy to hate it first. When you step through it, it kind of makes sense where it's all coming from. So this like top bit here is actually like when you call like you can think of it as calling a function on the server and you're passing it parameters, right? And those parameters you pass in, you need to like know what they are. So even though this is a mutation, it needs to specify like data from the server that it needs to then make that mutation should the user wish to do it. So in this case, it needs the ID of the user. Get mutation is just specifying the actual mutation method, which is called add to do. And then the get back query is something else that's a bit complicated, and that's.
I need to switch from the full screen because Hangouts just cannot share its screen.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
Cool. So yeah, when you make a mutation, you're sending data to the server, but then you're getting a bunch of data back, and that's because like it changes your whole store on the back end. Like if you accept someone's friend request, then like the amount of friends that you have is going to increment by 1. Yeah, the amount of friends that they have is going to increment by 1. Maybe you can see stuff that you couldn't see before. So you have to think about when you make a mutation, what's going to change. And when you define a schema, you define a mutation, you define a payload response. So this get back query is closely tied with that. So that's basically saying, when you make this mutation, get me this stuff back, because that's all going to change. And I need to know like an updated thing. Get configs is something I had most. It's actually where you have to tell the store what it needs to do. So this is like telling the store like you're going to have these like bunch of to-dos and like you're going to get a new one, so you need to like add it on basically. Get variables is the parameters that you're passing to that function. And get optimistic response is one of the coolest things that Relay gives us, where you can just make basically return a fake JavaScript object of what you think that mutation is going to do to the UI. So what happens is like if you load up this to-do app and you go on Chrome DevTools, you emulate like 50 kilobytes per second, right? And you add a to-do, open up the networks tab, you'll see that like that to-do like will immediately go in that list, even though the network is still pushing that to-do out. So if you're on a ship mobile connection, that's really cool, yeah, because you can like be in a field somewhere and it's going to like feel like responsive.
And the way it works, like Relay gives you the single store for the whole application, where it stores everything. But there is also, inside the store, there's also temporary store. And when you do optimistic updates, it updates the temporary store, which updates the UI. Then it waits from its server for response. If it fails, then it just reverts the change. I think if the server fails for any reason, if it's just offline, you still have the mutation object. You can just retry the same thing once again, or you can just say like, okay, I give up. Let's revert it back. And central store is still untouched, but temporary store will be, mutation will be just discarded, and you carry on.
Yeah, it's neat. And with the optimistic update thing, it's like it's optional as well. Like you can't optimistically update everything. So they gave an example, like when you like a post, like it's very easy just to increment that like count of the post, yeah. But the like sentence, which says like your friend this and so and so and so and so also likes this, is a little bit more difficult to like optimistically update, right? So you just like leave that, and that can update when the request comes back. It's not as important. So yeah, so it doesn't have to be extensive. Yeah, and one of the hard things we found as well, just like we were saying, error messages that don't make any sense and just slow you down in development. The nice bit as well, I've talked about that already, co-location. I'll show you an example in the blog that we built. So let's take the
Unmaximize.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Awesome. Next.
Let's take the just take the post in. So this is when you see a list of posts. This is the post index component, and you see here I'm specifying how it's going to be rendered, what it's going to look like, styles it's going to have on, and then here I'm saying, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. I'm doing post preview. So here I'm saying like I want the slug, I want the title, and I want the author's first name and last name. So it's really cool how it's in the same place, because it's like, imagine if a requirement came through and you're like, actually, I also want to just, if they click on the author, like, I don't know, show their email. So it would just be like as simple as just smashing an email drop there and then making a mail to link up here. So it's real quick. I think that's the one thing about Relay and Graphical is it allows the front end, like, because it does separate your back end and your front end developers, but it allows your front end developers to move really fast, because they can like effortlessly grab whatever data they want. And if you think about it, you kind of want your front end developers to move fastest, right? Because that's where the UX is, like, allow them to move fast. It's important. So that's co-location.
It means it can change really quickly as well. So you can imagine the user interface changing every day almost.
Yeah.
The thing that slows it down at the moment is that you have to change the backend in the API and everything upstream, whereas now you don't. You can get away with just changing the UI, and you only have to change it in one file.
Yeah.
And it's the same component, it's all within the same place.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful thing there, just to be able to add the email and put in a mail to link or something.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing you need to do to change what the UI looks like.
Yeah, it's awesome. We found it because like last few days we would go days without actually touching the schema. Like we'd be in the front end, the schema part would just go and touch, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, once you set up the schema and resolvers, you're fine basically. Like, as long as you serve enough data, potentially you can consume. Again, you can take as much data as you need, and then you can take a little bit more data or less data depending what you need.
We're seeing the same at the FC, that like whatever change to the front page we do, we have to, I don't know, related content, something new. It's just one place for you to.
Yeah.
Cool. So another cool feature is it's declarative.
So this is new website.
Yeah.
Right? New blog.
It might not. Yeah.
It's not finished. Right now.
It's not.
Yeah, we haven't had any like designs of UX stuff come through, so I'm sure it will change. But here's an example of how easy it is to do loading more posts.
Simple screen, but it's alright. Yeah. I'm following.
You're the one.
Yeah, so here's an example of how easy it is to do loading more posts with Relay. So I've asked for 5. I want to load more. Click yeah, load more. Actually looks a lot better when you.
Oh. Yeah, it's better. We'll talk about it in a moment.
So yeah, come down, get this nice animation, and then when that comes through, boom, it's there. And that was super easy in Relay. I'll show you the code. It's in the post index component.
So these are like variables, query variables you can use in your queries. really useful.
Yeah. So in the initial errors, we'll say we want to get 5 posts at the beginning, calling it the count. It's getting passed as a parameter to the post method, which is returning the list of posts. And then we've made this method called load more. We've got a button here that on click calls this .load more. And all it does is it says, so this is reacted, it's .set state. So I'm saying I want you to set state to loading is true, because then when it gets to here, it's turning operator, and it will load the spinner. So straight away it's saying load the spinner, and then when that's done, get back to me, and we call this callback, which is then calling a relay function called set variables, and it's simply incrementing the amount of posts you want by 5, and that's going to fetch that. And then when that comes up, we're getting another callback, and then we're saying, oh, look, that's done. Now we can set this to loading as false, and then we've got the extra post. So real simple and real declarative. Cool. And then the next thing I was going to show you is caching. So they call it overfetching. You get this a lot in traditional APIs, where you're just like requesting the same data again and again and again, and you're wasting like network time.
Or even worse, you're requesting data that you don't want.
Yeah,
Or you're never going to use, because the API is set in stone. It's going to give you that data regardless of whether you want to consume it.
yeah.
And affect even worse. If you want something that's not there.
Cool. Yeah. To show you what I mean by that, so it's like less abstract. So this is the GraphQL query. It throws it up as a post request / GraphQL. Our query is
Can you increase the size?
just hide. Yeah. Just hide it.
Yeah. Can you frame into
yeah.
just command plus? I think it will increase size. Command shift plus.
Command shift plus.
Oops.
I don't know. That was me. I missed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so this query is pretty ugly because it puts some like hash on the end of the fragments. But the point I'm trying to make is that we grab these posts and we ask for where's the fragment? So yeah, we ask for like title and we ask for like author. I don't think I can get any lower, but yeah, we are basically asking title. Oh, nice one. Slightly better. Yeah, we're asking for stuff that we can see here, like we're asking for the published date and like the title and the author's name.
Yeah, you can see the published date and title already fetched. So now when you go to the actual post.
Yeah. So when I click here, this is going to be like a lightning fast page change, right? Because it doesn't need single page app. It doesn't need to ask for much more. So I click here. Boom, we're over. This is grabbing the body.
A bunch of stuff. Yeah.
So if we look at the GraphQL request here, we can see that it only needed to ask for the body again. There's no title in there. There's no author name, author second name. So we already got that. That's already in the relay store and it's cached. So yeah, that's another really nice feature of the relay. And then I think, do you want to talk about the mention
relay router? So there is an example of new relay router which allows you to combine back router and relay. And we had some struggles with that. Yeah. Yeah,
so it's here. So yeah, we struggled obviously because it was just like very new. You know, like we were using a plugin, weren't we? That's only like 5 days old. But the main thing is they do work nice together. So there's a new version of React Router, like beta version, but it provides an API that lets Relay use, and it's just like really easy. So we're saying like /post, /blog. I want you to get the post index, and then it's saying /post ID. Load the post component, and then the post queries up here are the kind of the entry point queries into GraphQL. Yeah. Do you want me to take it?
Yeah, sure. So we also tried Graphical. For the past couple of weeks, we actually had a unique opportunity. We were grabbing pretty much every single piece of culture coming out. So Graphical was one of those. It kind of came out this week, I think, the Monday. So yeah, so we have a public endpoint. So we could go to localhost Graphical, Yeah, you get this. We'll just pretend for a moment we have no idea what this endpoint is. So graphical is pretty cool because you have, even if you have no idea what this endpoint is, you can start creating things. So let's just start doing things like give me schema and give me some fields, also types, and maybe some. And the thing is, I mean, it tells you already like what you can request from it. And also there's like a description thing which tells you even more. Obviously, it's kind of your responsibility to fill in this description if it's already a custom schema. So let's request some fields and maybe print some name and description of those fields and execute, and you get already like all the stuff. So there's like get post batch logs, there's session, there's note, there's this budget bouncer which we'll talk in a moment. So now when we know all this stuff, we can do things like let's do session and let's ask for like posts. Or we can, yeah, okay, and let's do edges and note, and let's print like title of the post, and maybe what else? Publish that.
Maybe author something.
And author. And author is like a object, so you can go in and you can print last name.
So title
First
that
name.
scalars in the schema. So
Yeah.
strings.
So you get all
Author to an object.
so you get this kind of response. But yeah, again, like it's kind of the same thing what Victor showed last time when you were talking about GraphQL. You can do also things like post by this author. So you can then print again edges and note and again like title. So now we're going to get not only authors but also every single article written by this author as well. Really flexible thing. And yeah, a second ago I had no idea what is this endpoint. Now I know everything. I can use it. No specs, no formal documentation.
What else is cool is like you see the shape on the left matches the shape on the right.
Oh yeah.
And that's not like in a RESTful guy. You might go back in the client and you have to do some processing in the client, mixing stuff up, get it into a format that the rest of your app can understand. But that's just easy.
So I'm also going to show you. So on edges, you also have this really useful thing called page. No, I think it's not. It's not page info. No, I think it's. There you go. So this will give you. It has next page, as previous page. So imagine if we like print in, oh yeah, also we need to do first, let's say 5. So now if we print in like first 5 posts, there is a next page available, but no previous page. So like pagination out of box. Cool. Right. CSS. So yeah, I mean, CSS has been pretty boring for the past couple of years, probably, because, like, yeah, there's some things were happening interesting, but yeah. So on this project, we used CSS modules and post CSS, and really briefly, just to go through those things, maybe show a little bit. So if you go back to the code and like go to the component. Again, talking about code collocation. So as you can see on top, we also import these styles inside the React component. So this gives us styles, and then inside the actual component, like in the class name, we just use styles date stamp, and we have normal styles in here. This looks pretty much like normal CSS, except for one tiny little detail you might notice that composes. So, and not only it composes dark green background, it also composes it from another file, which we haven't even imported yet. It works somehow. And also, what else? Maybe media queries.
There's no global namespace.
Yes. So CSS modules, some of you probably read this article. It's really interesting approach in the way that we used to have. So we used to have like classes. We still have them, but then you need when you have like a bunch of classes, you have a problem of clashing them between each other. And then we came up with this idea of BEM, like let's have like a base and modifier and something. So it just let's bring a convention which will solve our problems. But BEM doesn't kind of solve your problems. It's just almost like denial. You like I just pretend I didn't have this problem. I know there are some people like really like BEM, and I totally understand them. I don't like them. So CSS modules gives you namespacing out of the box. So when you have a CSS file, so and this is kind of the pattern we're following from Tesco project. So it's like this is components. You have a folder of component, you have index, and then you have a style of the component. So this will actually be namespace to this particular file, to this particular component. So I can use any class name I want, like day, and it won't clash with anything. It won't clash because when you compile it, let's see, it actually attached a hash, and it also attached a name. Oh, this is kind of name of the actual style sheet. So you get namespacing out of the box, and yeah. Also, you get dead code elimination out of the box as well, because if we don't import this style in the component, it won't get included in the final styles. Or if I'm not using some class inside the component, but I'm still importing the style sheet, it is smart enough not to import those classes in the final style set as well. So you get dead code elimination out of the box. There are some, so you get also, I think this is already post CSS. I think so, yeah. Okay, so yeah, there are some limitations to this. So all of that we just mentioned. Some limitations in the way that like you only use classes, you don't use IDs, and it only kind of works with again like just classes. So if you use like normal selectors, element selectors, don't work on those because well how? So but you can still use like a class name which will get hashed and then have like an element after that and still work. And with pseudo classes there are some limitations, but it will still work as well. So I mean, as you can compose other classes into your class, and when you do a compose in the React component, it will not actually, like a SAS or less will do when you use mixins, it will not inject the whole thing in your thing. It will, in the React component, it will use class names, and then just class name, as opposed to actual code injection. Right. Also, we used PostCSS, and PostCSS is a very interesting thing. Such a huge topic, actually, but yeah. So basically, CSS modules will create you like a CSS in the end with hash class names, but it won't stop you from post-processing it forward. So you can still do very interesting things, and PostCSS is one of those things. It will parse your CSS, and then it will offer API to plugins, and then plugins can connect to the parsed CSS, and they can do anything they want. One of those things, for example, you can use future CSS syntax today, so you can use like we used like variables, I think.
Yeah, and color.
Yeah, and color as well. Yeah, so if you took like the color, so this is, for example, these variables are coming from a future CSS syntax. And yeah, so it's like a Babel, but for CSS. And yeah, CSS Next also contains, CSS Next is like this huge plugin which contains all those new features of CSS4 and upcoming things that you can use today. It also contains auto prefixing things, so you can use CSS features without thinking that do you need browser-specific prefixes or not. It will do it for you. It will also consult with can I use database to actually be up to date, to know which browsers already started supporting things without browser auto prefixes. So yeah, yeah, grid. Because you cannot, I mean, lessons are the so-called preprocessors. So, and PostCSS is a post-processor. Preprocessor means that you already write sort of things which compiles into CSS. We are doing slightly opposite thing. We are already writing CSS, but we are going like after the CSS, we component into another kind of CSS using post-processing. So grid on post-CSS, again, like a plugin which allows you to use a certain kind of syntax, which may be really descriptive and human readable, and it will compile it into a normal CSS grid for you. So we use that as well. And yeah, you can build your own pretty much like CSS language you want. You can pick up things like I want big scenes, or I want variables, I want some composability, and a lot also like support for the old browser, like old browser hacks in CSS. You can get a plugin which will do it for you. So you can just concentrate on like important things and get on with it. Yeah, let's talk about this one. Want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so, yeah, because we were having a chat earlier on the sofa, and you probably yeah, it's probably funny. I did like techies, like I guess we kind of like stalk other people's websites and we kind of like look how they build it. So if anyone stalks us, they will see in console. You'll see, what do I for a budget? See if you can get past the budget bouncer on our GraphQL requery type. So expect them to know a little bit about GraphQL. And so if they were clever, they might look at our network and they would see where our GraphQL schema is. They could introspect that, find out what the fields are, and start sending requests to it. Now, if they do that, they might not find GraphQL. But if they were to look at the budget bouncer, they would see here's a budget bouncer, and then they would see it takes in a parameter which is enter the characters that were Tim Berners-Lee's enter the characters that were Tim Berners-Lee's big mistake in the web address. I don't know if anyone knows, but if you take any URL, these 2 forward slashes here, he admits that like there is a mistake, and when he invented the web, he kind of, I think it was like operating system as at the time used 2 forward slashes to be like the top root, so that's why he did it. But actually, he could have got away with not doing it. And it sounds trivial, it's just 2 forward slashes, but it's like this $1 billion mistake, right? It's like you think of all the extra paper that's been printed, all the extra ink, radio hosts when they shout out URL, forward slash, just wasting everyone's time. So, so basically, you've got to try and guess it. So if you put in the wrong answer, you're going to get back you're wrong. But don't give up. You've got this far. If you put in 2 forward slashes, correct passwords, wobbly badger.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, that's the end of our talk.
All right.
That's really good.
Wait, what happens if it's on the right?
That wasn't right answer.
Oh yeah.
You get the password back, which you've got to tell Amy.
So then they just email jobs@redbudget.com.
Yeah, but they will give you the password, and so you will know that they're already smart.
It needs to be a one-time password. Otherwise, the password.
Yes, we can generate passwords as well. Like,
I can't believe you've done that. It's absolutely Thank you.
just there's no distraction from us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
All right.